Yaste sukam vasi Navadvari pure dehi Naiva kurvan nakarayan. When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. We can repeat. When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. The embodied soul lives in the city of 9 gates. The activities of the body, or the figurative city of body, are conducted automatically by its particular modes of nature. The soul, although subjecting himself to the conditions of the body, can be beyond those conditions if he so desires. Owing only to forgetfulness of his superior nature, he identifies with the material body and therefore suffers. By Krishna consciousness, he can revive his real position and thus come out of his embodiment. Therefore, when one takes to Krishna consciousness, one at once becomes completely aloof from bodily activities. In such a controlled life in which his deliberations are changed, he lives happily within the city of 9 gates. The 9 gates are mentioned as follows. Navadvare pure dehi Hamso leila yate bahi Vasi sarvasya lokasya Stavarasya charasya cha. The Supreme Personality Godhead, who is living within the body of a living entity, is the controller of all living entities all over the universe. The body consists of 9 gates, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 1 mouth, the anus, and the genitals. The living entity, in his conditioned stage, identifies himself with the body, but when he identifies himself with the Lord within himself, he becomes just as free as the Lord, even while in the body. Svata Svatara Upanishad 3.18. Therefore, a Krishna-conscious person is free from both the outer and inner activities of the material body. When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. Now, this is a very, very profound verse. If we can understand this verse, we have a chance to be happy in this life. And if we don't understand this verse, we are condemned by ourselves to be always suffering. Well, first of all, let's understand what the nature of the material world. Some people think, oh, this is a great place. But Krishna's opinion is different. Mama pitya punarjanma dukhalayam asasvatam napanuvanti mahatmanasam siddhim paramam gata. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries. Dukhalayam asasvatam. It's temporary place, because our being in the material world is temporary. Our being in this body is temporary. And it's full of misery, because they have attained the highest perfection. So it takes some time for people to understand that this place is miserable. But it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. Because we're so conditioned by the misery that we think it's great. That is amazing, but it's a fact. So Krishna says, to reconfirm this 9th chapter, 33rd verse, Kim punar brahmana punya bhakta rajasayastata anityam asukam lokam imam prapya brajasvamam. How much more this is so of righteous brahmanas, the devotees and saintly kings. Therefore, having come to this temporary, miserable world, they engage in loving service unto me. So, I guess we have to think very carefully. Unless we're convinced this is a miserable place, we're not really interested in finding out how to get out. It's only when you're sure that this place is miserable. And to be sure about it, okay, you could intellectually accept these statements and say, now I'm sure. But no, this doesn't work like that. One has to be extremely frustrated in the business of sense gratification to even begin to be sure about it. Not that you understand, even after suffering tremendously, you only begin to entertain the thought that it might be true. So, but before that, most people, they decide, oh, let me commit suicide. Before they even think, I'm sure there's no happiness for me. Because they think, well, I'm just unfortunate, I'll commit suicide. And then they abort any possibility of understanding the real nature. That's why there's so much suicide in the world. It's happening every day. However, we should not be afraid of failing or suffering. In fact, we should look at it as Krishna's special mercy to help us come out of this hopeless illusion that somewhere, somehow, there's a place in this world where I'm going to be happy. It's just like the founder of DHL. No, what is it? McAfee. Yeah, I'm sorry. DHL is another story. The founder of McAfee, he made a lot of money, made $100 million. And then there was a lot of legal pursuit of him for things, that he might have done in court. So he ran away from the United States and moved to Belize, which is not far. Belize is only a 5-hour airplane ride from Miami. It's a nice place, and it's very close to the United States. And it's one of those, something like a safe haven, if you want to run away from the United States government, something. It's not 100% sure, but it's pretty good. So he ran away with his money and got out of harm's way of legal suits and things like that. But there, he got into trouble also. Now he's run away from there, and he's trying to come back to the United States. They're accusing him, suspecting him of having committed a murder, and that he was drug dealing and other things. Right? Now he's got $100 million, but he lost $100 million doing nonsense, And then he got into other things. Now he wants to come back to the United States, right? So you see, if you ask him, do you think this is a miserable world? He said, yeah, I think it's miserable. Do you think you'll find a place where you can be happy? Yes, I still think I'll find a place to be happy. See, he hasn't given up. See, just because people suffer, it doesn't mean they're convinced that there's no place in this world I'll be happy. They think, I just picked the wrong one. I'll try again somewhere else and I'll be happy. Now this guy was caught with a 17-year-old girl who's in his late 50s, 60s in Belize, right? You see, they never stop, or 16-year-old girl, they never stop. It's the same thing wherever they go. They do nonsense. So Krishna describes this world as anityam asukam. Prabhupada says, in this material world there are classifications of people, but after all, this world is not a happy place for anyone. It is clearly stated here, anityam asukam lokam. This world is temporary and full of miseries, not habitable for any sane gentleman. This world is declared by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be temporary and full of miseries. Some philosophers, especially Mayavadi philosophers, say that this world is false, but we can understand from Bhagavad Gita that the world is not false. It is temporary. Krishna doesn't say the world is false, he says it's temporary. This is the purport to 933. There is a difference between temporary and false. There is a difference between temporary and false. This world is temporary, but there is another world which is eternal. This world is miserable, but the other world is eternal and blissful. Now, how do we know that? Because Krishna says that that there is a eternal world, and as we know from Brahma Samhita and other Vedic literatures, that's a blissful place. Chintamani prakarasatma sukalpa vriksha laksha vrite susurabir abhipalyantam lakshmi sahasra satasam brahma sevyamanam govindam adipurisham tamaham bhajami. So it's a world in which you don't have bricks and cinder blocks and things like that. You have Chintamani. Right? That already makes a big difference. Eternal, transcendental jewels that can give you anything you want. And you have Surabhi, a cow that can give you anything you want, not just milk. And there's Lakshmis, goddesses of fortune, not one, millions of them, worshipping Narayan worshipping Narayana. Each one is a goddess of fortune. They can give you anything you want, right? So why would one want to stay in this world? Only because they have no knowledge of the other world. Knowledge is there, but they're not interested to hear about it. They're more interested in going to Las Vegas and losing their money. See? So that is ignorance. That's called illusion. They're deep in illusion. And how to get out of illusion? Well, one must hear about Krishna. Then they can begin to think, there's something better than Las Vegas. And Krishna says about himself, Purushasa para partha bhaktya labhyas tvananyaya yasyanta stani bhutani yena sarvam idam tatam. In 8th chapter, 22nd verse, he says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. So, Purushasa parak partha, Krishna is greater than anybody else you could ever meet. He is full of all the opulences, beauty, fame, renunciation, knowledge, power, and riches. You can't meet anyone more attractive than Krishna, and he's greater than all. And he's only attainable by unalloyed devotion. Although he is present in his abode, he is all-pervading and everything is situated within him. So this is a nice explanation of Krishna. Parastasma tubhavo nyo vyakto vyaktat sanatana yasasarvesu bhutesu nasatsuna vinasyatsi. So, when everything in this world is destroyed, there's another world that never is destroyed, that is eternal. So this information that he's giving in 933 is simply repeating what is in the Bhagavad Gita, where he says here, this world is temporary, but there's another world which is eternal. This world is miserable, but the other world is eternal and blissful. So, we're getting information here to help us understand what is the real nature of this world and what should be our real destination, Paramgati. We should not want to stay here, because no matter what situation we make in this world, there's going to be birth, death, old age, and disease. And it's all miserable. None of it is happy. Birth is not happy. Death is not happy. Old age is not happy, I can tell you that. And disease is not happy. So why would anyone want to stay here? Only out of ignorance. Like the frog in the well, he thinks his well is like Vaikuntha. But it's hell. It's a hellhole. Okay, so now Krishna is explaining how to get out here. He says, when the embodied living being controls his nature, what is our nature? Well, our perverted nature, in other words, our real nature is Anandamaya Vyasat. We're naturally, eternally happy, full of bliss. Our perverted nature is trying to be Anandamaya Vyasat with legs and arms and genitals and chickens and livers and frogs and, Is it possible to be happy like that? No. There's no real happiness. There's a little bit of happiness, but it's like instead of getting, it's like one drop of rain falling in the desert. Is that going to help the desert? No. So that little bit of happiness we have in the material world, it's not worth it. Now that we're talking about material happiness, we're not talking about spiritual happiness. This verse is explaining how we can attain spiritual happiness, which is unending. But people, the guys with the baseball hat on backwards and the six-pack of Bud and eating a dog, watching the Super Bowl, that's not happiness. That's misery. They think it's happiness, but it's all misery. The six-pack is misery. The dog with mustard on it is misery. The baseball hat on backwards is misery. The Super Bowl is misery. The whole thing is misery. But they think it's happy. Now, how is that possible? It's just like this. Why is the fly attracted to stool? It goes right on the stool. It goes right on the stool and it's happy. And why does the bee go to the flower and suck the honey from the flower? We have to think about this. Why is the fly? Now let's analyze it. What do you think? Why doesn't the fly go to the flower? Let's think about this. This is an interesting subject. You can understand you can accept the fly as a guru. He can teach you something. A very profound thing about life. What do you think? Yeah, but not only that.
It's ignorance.
Yeah, but,
No.
Even if he knew, he wouldn't go, because he is hardwired. He's hardwired. His eyes, his nose, his tongue, his feet, everything is conditioned for stool. He has a body that loves stool. You see? Like the pog, like the people that go on the Safeway, and when they go straight to the meat section, they go, it smells good. Now, does it smell good to you? No, I hold my nose, and I want to throw up. But they're hardwired. Krishna has given them particular type of nose, particular type of ear, particular type of eye, particular type of tongue, particular type of wings and whatever, to enjoy stool and not to like honey, not to like the flower. They don't like it. Given by Krishna. He has to give it to him. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to do it.
They desire?
No, well, they deserve it. They had a chance as a human being, but they lost the chance when they kept eating the burgers and putting the hat on backwards and drinking the Bud and talking nonsense all day. So then they're given a body where they can eat stool and enjoy it. And that's all they know. They don't, stool, dead bodies, things like that. That's what they like. Anything that smells bad, they go right to it. Now, people are like that too. Some people, when they pass stool, they're not bothered by the smell. But if somebody else passes stool and they smell it, they say, it stinks. But their own, they think it smells good. Is this right or wrong? Huh? Yeah, they're not bothered by it. They got used to it. They got used to it. Anybody else is, I won't touch that, But their own, they got used. You see what conditioning can do to a person, right? So, if we misbehave, then Krishna has to make us forget him to continue to misbehave. So therefore he puts a fog in our brain. Therefore, when we walk by the meat section of Safeway, that smells good. Boy, I think I won't buy a sirloin steak tonight. See? He has to cloud the brain. He has to put a fog in the brain so the person, and he has to somehow or other cover the eyes so that when they're looking at a dead body, they think it looks good. Or they see the fish, the dead fish, right? They put a whole dead fish in the window at the Safeway, right? People look at it and say, I want that, right? Just like when you go and you see milk, you say, I want that. But they see the dead fish, I want that. They see the fish looking at them. The eye is there, the mouth is there, everything is there. They think it's good. They're not disturbed by it. They don't see it as a dead body. They see it as food. You see? That's the same thing as the fly. The fly sees a dead body. They think that's my food. He doesn't say, oh, it's a dead body. I don't want to go near it. No. See, now we can learn a lot from the fly if you think about it in depth. But we're the fly. We've been hardwired also because of our sinful activity to think certain things which are horrible are actually good. You see? We won't talk anymore about this subject, but you could go deeper and deeper into this and you see how badly we have been hardwired. And now, when I say hardwired, I mean it. Our senses, our mind, everything is made not to see Krishna. Otherwise, we wouldn't be free to engage in sense gratification. He has to help us by clouding us, putting a big fog in the brain, so that we think certain things are attractive when actually they're horrible. So here it's explaining how to get out of it. He says, when the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions. So, yeah, when you're passing stool, a person shouldn't think, I feel relieved. And it doesn't smell that bad. No. Once you think, this is disgusting. This body, this stool, look what my body does. It produces a nasty substance like this. And that's inside of me, and now it's coming out. Now I can see what it really is. I should be disgusted by it. But no, people think, oh, this is good. I had a good passage. I feel good. You say, that's not what it means. It means, look, Prabhu, this is the reality. This is what you're doing. You're creating stool. That's what the body does, right? There was once a man, he was talking with his guru, and the guru said to him, and he told his guru, this world is not that bad. Guru said, what do you say? He said, it's not that bad. He said, okay, there's some bad people, there's some good people, but everybody is not bad. He said, Guru said, okay, look, your homework, I want you to go out and find the lowest person in the world. And he said, and by the way, he said, do you think you're bad? He said, no, look, I'm sitting at your lotus feet. I'm chanting some Hare Krishna. He said, okay. Can you go out and find the worst person? He said, okay. So he went out and he looked around to try and find a really bad person, right? So he looked around, or really something really vile, Finally he decided that there was some stool on the ground. He said, this is it. This is the worst thing. There's nothing worse than this. And he was pointing at the stool like this. And now I'm going to go back to Guru Dev and tell him this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. So right before he went, the stool started speaking to him. He said, wait, sir, you're making a mistake. He said, what? He said, yes, sir, I'm speaking to you. You're making a mistake. He said, how can you speak? Never mind. Just listen to what I'm saying. I was a lemon meringue pie once, and I looked beautiful. You like lemon meringue pie? Oh, yes. See? I was very beautiful. I smelled nice. It was like white cream on the top and yellow pudding in the middle, a nice cake-like structure. And I was very beautiful. And there was a cherry on top. But some man came like you and ate me. And look what he turned me into. Therefore, the worst person in the world is man. The guy was shocked. He said, oh my God. The stool is talking to him. He said, look what they did to me. I was beautiful. And he turned me into this. So how can anyone be any good? How can any man be good if that's all they do? So this humbled him. We came back to Gurudev. And Gurudev smiled. He said, so, did you find the worst person in the world? I said, yes. He said, who is it? He said, it's me. You told me you were a good person. You were sitting at my lotus tree, you're chanting Hare Krishna. Yes, but I was instructed by a pile of stool. He said, really? What did the stool tell you? He said, man is the worst because he eats nice things and turns it into stool. How can it be good? He said, you're right. So you're going to stay and learn now? He said, yes. And I'm not making any excuses for the material world. The whole material world is stool. I'm not attracted to it anymore. I just want to learn from you correctly how to see things. So that's what Krishna is doing here. He's trying to teach us how to see things correctly. So, we're living in this body. There are 9 holes to this body. And we're performing all kinds of activities: eating, passing stool, sleeping, waking up, eating, passing stool, working, eating, passing stool, coming home, eating, passing stool, watching television, passing more stool, then going to sleep, then waking up and continuing the next day. So this is going on all day long, right? So when a person says, look, this whole thing is disgusting, I don't associate with it anymore. I mean, okay, I'm in this body, but I'm not connecting myself with this anymore. I understand what it actually is. And I'm going to live in this body, but I'm going to use it, not to produce stool, but to serve Krishna. And Krishna will protect me. So the soul, although subjecting himself to the conditions of the body, see, we chose to be like this, separated from Krishna, and we got a body that fit our mentality to enjoy different types of stool, right? But we don't have to be like this. This is artificial. That's not who we are. We're like a fish out of water. We don't belong in this world. We don't need a material body. We have a spiritual body, which is lacking the knowledge. And the reason we're lacking the knowledge is because we revolted against Krishna, and in order to freely engage in sense gratification, Krishna blocked out that memory. Blocked it out. Otherwise we wouldn't be free to make these decisions that we're making. So, the soul, although subjecting himself to the conditions of the body, can be beyond those conditions, if he so desires. Now, that's the whole point. What do we want? What do we want? What do we desire? See, there was once a man, and he was disgusted with being poor. So one day he told his wife, he said, I'm leaving. She said, where are you going? He said, I'm coming back, but I'm going to go out and I'm going to try and be rich. She said, well, that's okay. Look, we're still somehow existing. No. He said, I'm fed up with this. I have to make some money. So he goes, and he travels far and wide. He ends up walking up a mountain, because he couldn't find anything in the valley, so he figured, let me go up the mountain. So he goes up a mountain, and he meets a sadhu. And he bows down and says, Sadhuji, Asirvad. He said, what do you want? He said, I want your Asirvad. He said, I know. What do you mean by Asirvad? He said, well, I want to get rich. See, I knew that. Why you want to be rich? I'm fed up being poor. He said, it's not good for you. What, being poor? No, being rich. No, I have to be rich. I'm fed up with being poor. He said, what's wrong with being poor? Even Prabhupada says it's better to be poor than to be rich. Even Prabhupada, I can show you where he says that. It's better for devotees to be poor than you're always depending on Krishna. I'm not saying give away your money or anything like that. If you want to give away your money, give it to the temple. But I'm not saying that. But there's a certain... you don't have to be... You can be very rich and still be poor. In what way? Well, you earn so much money, but you give it, all the excess money to Krishna. That way you don't have anything to be proud about, other than the fact that you should be proud about serving the Lord sincerely. But anyway, the man said, I want to be rich, I want to be rich, I want to be rich, I want to be rich. He wouldn't stop saying, I want to be rich. So the sadhu said, okay, I give up. Sit here. He let him sit on some kind of funny seat. And he said, what is this? This is some old wooden thing. He said, I know. But anything you desire, you'll get sitting on this seat. He said, really? He said, yes. He said, can I take it with me? He said, yes. So he carries it and goes. But he's so fascinated. After he's out of sight of the sadhu, he puts the chair down, a little wooden stool down. He sits down on it and he thinks, I'm hungry. Please give me something to eat. All of a sudden, a beautiful table is in front of him, full of prasad, full of food. And he's eating like anything, He's thinking, wow, this thing really works. He said, and I don't want to sleep in the forest tonight. Give me a nice bed. Boom, a gigantic, beautiful, soft bed. And he's laying down and he's eating and thinking, this is great, but what if it rains? He said, give me a big palace. Boom, a big palace. It comes all around him. And he said, this is fantastic, he says. But my God, what if there's an earthquake? Boom, earthquake happens and he dies. You say, whatever you desire, right? Whatever you're thinking of, that's what happens. So here Prabhupada says, the soul, although subjecting himself to the conditions of the body, can be beyond those conditions if he so desires. That's the key right there, if he so desires. And then he says, owing only to forgetfulness of his superior nature, he identifies with the material body and therefore suffers. So when I read this once, one devotee said, yeah, but we learned in the Bhakti Shastri's class that the soul never suffers. I said, who taught you that? So they said, the soul never suffers. I said, when you get a headache, do you suffer? He said, yeah. I said, I thought you said the soul never suffers. Well, no, but they said in the Bhakti Shastri's class, I said, theoretically that's true. But if, only owing to his forgetfulness of the superior nature, he identifies with the material body and therefore suffers. The soul doesn't suffer, but if you identify falsely with the material body, you will suffer. So there's more to it than what he was being told. If you say you never suffer, and people are suffering, they say, I'm not going back to that class anymore, it's full of nonsense. You have to explain why they can suffer by falsely identifying with the body. Whatever happens to the body will affect that person because of the false identification. But if one remains aloof from the body, does not have any interest in sense gratification, but uses the senses to please Krishna, then there's no more suffering. Suffering may come, but it doesn't bother the person anymore. It doesn't interrupt their service. Therefore, by Krishna consciousness, he can revive his real position and thus come out of his embodiment. Therefore, when one takes to Krishna consciousness, one at once becomes completely aloof from material activities. Yeah, he doesn't say, oh, this is great, I'm passing good stool right now. No, it's not great. The whole thing is miserable. Oh, this is good. I'm not listening to anything Harivilas said. I'm going to McDonald's and eating a Big Mac. In fact, I'm going to get a double Mac and Pepsi Cola because it tastes good. Just like, what's his name? Srinivasa's son. What's his name? Abhishek. He said he goes to school in Hyderabad. It's a good school. Good families send their kids. He said 90% of the kids eat meat. And they're trying to convince me, and they tell me how good it tastes. And he said, and most of them are Sri Vaishnava kids. See what's happening in India? It's like a catastrophe. And they're trying to convince them, they say, it tastes good. So, and the parents, many of them, or most of them, don't eat meat. But they take their kids out and let them eat meat. Because the kid wants to. See, that's like the donkey leading the man. Instead of the man leading the donkey's leading the man. Right? It's sad. Shishiradha Nilamadava ki jai. So then we'll end with this last statement. In such a controlled life of the devotee who controls his lower nature, in which his deliberations, meaning his thoughts, are changed, he lives happily within the city of 9 gates. So that's the theme of today. Everything depends on what's going on in there. Now, for some people, there's nothing going on in there, right? That's not good either. That's Buddhism. Nothingness, right? So they say, close it all out. Think of nothing, right? And the Mayavadis, they put a little nuance, a little spin on that, and say, well, no, don't think of nothing. Think of the Brahman, which is like thinking of nothing also, because there's no differentiation in the Brahman. You know? But at least it's something a little spiritual. But that's not the solution to the problem either, because one can never stop desiring. You can artificially stop it for some time, but it'll come. And as soon as it comes, you fall down from Brahman. Prabhupada said the Brahman is already fallen. It's already fallen. Because there's no devotional service. There's no Krishna and his devotees. It's all one. So if there's no devotional service, you must fall down. It's just a question of time. Right? However, a person who uses the senses, uses everything, words, mind, body, in the service of Krishna, and is not enamored at all by the body and what it does, they understand the real nature of things. The real nature is like this. Either you serve Krishna or you're going to serve Maya. There's no in-between. There's no gray area in between. It's one or the other. As soon as we stop serving Krishna, immediately we start serving Maya. Therefore, we have to make a constant, continual choice to serve Krishna. 24 hours. It's not a one-time choice. It's constant, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and as many years as we live. We have to choose every second to choose Krishna and to serve Krishna, and it all depends on what's going on in there. So therefore, this constant hearing and chanting is of utmost importance. Otherwise, very easily we drift away and we get caught, and then become a victim. Okay, we'll stop right there. This is a very good verse, very instructive. 5:13. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Haribol. See, the fly is our guru. We think, oh, what can the fly teach me? No. We see what happens. You can get hardwired to love stool and avoid honey. That's what happens. Very dangerous. Very dangerous. Hare Krishna. Have you ever seen a fly? That's not happiness, Prabhu. It's not happiness. No, see, that's the point you're not saying. It's really not happiness. They're calling. It's just like saying, oh, here's Padma Lochan to a blind boy. Is he Padma Lochan? He has, beautiful eyes. No, he's blind. You don't call someone Padma Lochan who's blind unless you're making a joke. Right? Even if he thinks he's happy, it's not happiness. How can it be happiness living in the stool? You see? It's an illusion. There's no happiness there. Are you going to find happiness in the stool? No. So then how can a fly find happiness in the stool? He might think it is, but it's an illusion. It's false. That substance is not made for happiness. That substance is made for, it's tamasic substance. How can it be happy? How can someone be happy? But because of their confused state of mind and because they're hardwired for it, they might think it's happiness, but it's actually all suffering. Just like the camel will eat thorny bushes. Why? Because when he's chewing on the thorns, it cuts his tongue and he bleeds. And he's tasting his blood and he's thinking, boy, this tastes good. But it's not good. He's eating his own blood. You see? He might think it's good because, he's hardwired to think it's good, but it's not good. You're going to get any happiness by eating your own blood? We have to get this. We have to understand the real nature of things. Otherwise, we'll say, ignorance is bliss then. I just blank everything out. I can eat stool and be happy. It's not happiness. There's no happiness in it. It's an illusion to think that that's happiness. The stool is not an illusion. The fly is not an illusion. But the fly thinking that he's happy eating the stool, that's the illusion. See, the Mayavadi would say the fly's an illusion, the stool's an illusion. We don't say they're illusions, they're real. But what's the illusion is the fly thinking that he's happy eating the stool. That's an illusion. There's no happiness there. It's the difference between Mayavadis and the devotees. So unless we understand the real nature of this material world, we'll go along, but we'll say, this is all Maya, but let me enjoy this Maya a little bit. Right? Thinking there's enjoyment. There's no enjoyment. It's all misery. Right? That's our own illusion, thinking there's happiness there. And until we're it takes a long time to be convinced of this. A long, long time. You don't get convinced overnight. You have to get burned. Usually they say, once burned, twice shy. No! Once burned, twice burned, 3 times burned, 100 times burned, 10,000 times burned, 10,000 births burned. Maybe they'll understand after that. Maybe, but not sure. The conditioning is so deep. See, you're telling me you're trying to make an excuse for the fly. Well, at least the fly is happy when he eats the stool. He's not happy. That's an illusion. There's no happiness in eating stool. That's the sick kid. There's no happiness eating stool. It's conditioning. It's conditioned, hardwired to think it's happy, but it's not happy. He thought it was happiness. He didn't want to leave. There's no happiness there. It was all misery. He thought he was a little happy, but it was all misery. But he was Indra, dancing with the Apsaris, right? Most beautiful. And he's happy being a pig with his little piglets. Imagine how powerful Maya is. See, we don't understand how powerful she is. She's incredible. We should always, Jai Mataji, thank you very much. Please stay away from me. Leave me alone. She'll leave you alone if you stay engaged in Krishna's service. So there's no middle ground. There's no, I'll do a little bit of nonsense and I'll come to the temple. There's no middle ground. That little bit of nonsense, little bit of temple, it doesn't work. You'll get burned eventually, one way or the other. Yes, yeah. Krishna's mercy and devotees' mercy. Sadhu's mercy. Guru's mercy. Only by associating with